All right. And we should be live. Let's just check to make sure we are live. Let's see. All right. Yep, we're live. Cool. All right, you guys. Welcome back to our little mix series. Looks like we're going to be pretty close to wrapping up this series. We're going to be working on another series after that. And I think we're going to focus on fixing some stuff on the mix buses that I recently noticed was a mistake. And that's actually thanks to a user comment. What was it? It was sorry, I can't really say this name. Rupertech Strubberglub. Sorry, I'm really bad at reading names and stuff like that, but usernames. But thanks to you for catching that I did not properly do my bus sending. So normally on some channels, we're going to go right here. If we do a factory reset initialization on this channel, this is already set as a group, right? So I'm just going to show you. This channel is always a group as it is, and you'll see that it has pan link already set up, which basically means your channel pan is already going to be linked. But when you copy anything over from one of these, it's actually not going to have that pan linking set up. So you'll see that these don't have pan linking. So if we do all and just for copying stuff over, you're going to have a couple of issues. And that's actually what I forgot when I made these buses, is that we don't actually have the pan linking automatically set up. So we're just going to go to all of our buses and do link to channel panning, right? And this is going to allow us to have every single bus linked to the individual channels panning, right? So link to channel panning, link to channel panning, link to channel panning, and that's going to allow us to have our stereo panning and everything like that. So now if we listen to something like the saxophone, which was made mono by accident because I didn't do that. Yeah, it's panned over to our right now. The way that we had it earlier was going to bypass that, right? Set to center, and this would be in mono. So you want to just make sure you do link to channel pan, and it keeps the stereo linking. So thank you so much for catching that. The 3.1 update is pretty new, and it's added a lot of extra things, and it's kind of changed the menus up to where they were, where I was getting a little confused. It's totally fine, not a huge problem, but I'm glad that we had someone catch that. So thank you. All right, this is also the earliest I've done a stream, so it's going to be a little interesting and awkward, I guess, but we're going to continue on. So now that we've corrected our stereo or our buses, we're going to do a couple things. We want to go ahead and start setting up our mix bus, which is going to be our main mix bus right here. And you can see that we have some channels that are routed to it and some channels that are not routed to it. That's simply because you'll see the channels that we have are drums, bass, guitar, saxophone, and vocals are not going to the main bus. They're actually being fed from the mix buses right here, as well as our reverbs and everything else. As of right now, we don't actually need any of this stuff going to it, so we can always set this to off. And we can actually do that with all of these channels as well. We don't need them on, and we don't need my voiceover going to that because the voiceover is already going to the stream bus. All right, so this is our mix bus. We're going to set this up, and usually I like to just preset or pre-design this we're going to have lots of compressors that we can choose from for the mix bus. Personally, I usually go for an SSL bus compressor or an API bus compressor or the 33609. Those are all bus compressor emulations anyway, and they sound really good. But if you want something very, very subtle, you could always go for the Fairchild or the Red Comp. Those are very smooth compressors. I want something a little bit snappy, so I'm going to go for the Soul bus compressor. And for the EQ, we're probably just going to stick to something that's going to be more of a tonal shaping EQ, so maybe the Pultec. And as of right now, we're not going to have any inserts, but if we want to have one, we can always do a all effects channel strip and have like a mastering compressor, something like this that's going to give us a limiter, an enhancer, an EQ, and a tape machine. And we can just have that on standby. Now let's take a quick listen to this mix and just see how everything's sounding. And let's just get started. So that is sounding really good. I'm going to go to my library. I'm just going to update this, and let's load up the one with no effects, and let's just see how this sounds. And we do need to update this to have our channel link pan. That way we have this set up properly. Cool. So that's pretty good. If anyone has any questions or anything, feel free to ask. But let's just move on to our processing here. So for the mix bus, it really depends on how you're doing this. If you're going to be doing subs and tops separate, there is going to be a specific way you're going to want to do this routing to feed your matrix. You can either have it on the main left-right because you are utilizing these buses now for your mixing. And if you want to have everything in time and in phase, because we are using inserts and effect slots, we will be needing to do that. Or we could create a group bus that is just for our low frequencies. And we could actually just make this a group. Hit apply. Channel all, group, apply. And then we're going to make sure that we have this set to off. And we could just make a mono bus here, and we could have this, just have the bass elements. So the kick, the bass, that would be it. Set to on, set to channel pan, and set to 0. And this would be our basically low end bus, but we'd only get low end content from this. And we could feed our subs like that. Or what we could do is we could actually send everything like the bass and the drums to this bus. If we want to really, really keep it in time, go none. And we could do the bass and drums, set to on, set to unity, send, right? And then what we would do is we could create a filter here and kind of create our own little crossover. And we would just set this to like 100 hertz or something, right? And then instead of feeding this to the mains, which I know you can't hear that right now, but right now, we would actually feed it to a sub matrix, and then we could do all of our sub processing that way. Not going to do that here because this is going to be for a stream mix, and honestly, 99% of the time for live stream mixes, I don't recommend doing a sub matrix, I think it's significantly better to just send it a stereo mix, because let's think about it. You're going to be going into headphones. You're not going to have something that's going to have an automatic crossover and stuff like that. So that is something to keep in mind, and that is something that is very important to have. So right now, we have this as our mix. Let's load it up. And let's go to a different song. I think we're tired of this. Let's go for maybe right here. I'm not sure what this is. Hey Jude. So this is going to be a good point. Let's actually go for a more exciting area or a busier section. And when we're doing our bus processing for our mix bus, we oftentimes want to make sure that we're getting the set amount of compression at its loudest peaks. So usually you don't want to have it super aggressive, but we can see how this sounds, right? Let's just check out the different bus compressors and the different everything just to see. So this is the SSL bus compressor. Let's do some pretty aggressive settings and see if we can get different tones out of this thing. So that sounds pretty crazy, to be honest. It sounds really crazy. And I want to make sure that I'm hearing it as well, because I cannot hear this one. So I'm going to actually go into my routing, and I'm going to do my headphone outs is going to come out. What is it? My monitoring. So we're going to go into here, and we're going to change our monitoring from main out 4 to main out 1, just so I can hear it here now. And let's just see what this is doing. Now, this is actually a common issue that happens with SSL bus compressors, is they don't really like low end for some reason. They kind of seem to suck the low end out. And I've just noticed that in general, the SSL bus compressor will have a tendency to do that for some reason. I'm not really quite exactly sure why it does that. But I have noticed that tends to happen with the SSL bus compressor. You will have a low end suck, where your low end just gets a little bit sucked out. It just doesn't sound right all the time, and it can actually end up being a problem later on down the line. There are some things you can do. You could do a key filter or a crossover mode, which is going to change how the compressor is going to listen. In this case, I'm going to do a key filter. I don't know why it's not letting me click on it right now. Maybe it's a bug. It could be a bug. Let's find out. Let's go to our main bus, SSL bus, key filter. Yeah, I guess it was just a bug with the touch screen. Let's come here and let us do a crossover filter. So we can do a low pass or a high pass filter to make it so that the bus compressor is not being triggered by, let's say, anything under 100 hertz, right? Now we can get different style sounding compression, and it'll give us a lot more options than what we initially had, which is going to be a good thing. So let us just, give me 1 second. So let us just take a look and listen. Okay, let's try if we have this bypassed. and on. So we'll have it flat. So you're getting a lot less pumping. It sounds a little bit punchier. And of course, we're over compressing. So let's bring it down. But to be honest, in my opinion, I don't feel like the SSL bus compressor is very good when we are utilizing the low end properly in a mix. And I actually feel like maybe I want to have a little bit more kick drum. To me, there's nothing wrong with the kick drum as it is right now, but I kind of want more of it. It could just be today. Today, my ears might just feel a little bit more bass is wanted. But to me, I'm not really digging the SSL bus compressor. It's got like an interesting tone, but I'm not feeling it. Let's go for the API and let's see if we can get something out of it. And we'll have this at like a 3-to-1 ratio. It is subtle, but I'm noticing that the API definitely has a better cohesion for the low end than the SSL bus compressor did. It just doesn't have as much of a suck. Let's try using that high pass filter to roll off the detection of the filter. And of course, we can do a crossover mode where we can actually go ahead and change how the compressor is listening to the audio. Yeah, it's definitely having like a cleaner low end when you have the key filter on. But again, I'm not really feeling the API. I think the API is just not what I want. It's not punchy. Let's go for the even comp. We're going to turn off the compressor, turn on the limiter. Okay, I like that. I like whatever the 33609 is doing. It's a little punchy, it's a little snappy, it's very Neve-esque, but that is what Neve compressors do. They are kind of like that, where they're just aggressive all the time. So that's just something to keep in mind. For me, I kind of dig that. What about for our mastering processing? So I'm noticing that there's some things or some elements that are getting lost in the mix, right? So we can turn on a limiter to make sure that we have a cohesion or we're not clipping. we can do other things. We have elements we can add for a insert process. And this is something you would do on the master bus, not on your matrix. On your matrix, I like to do all my corrective processing, which is what you do for like doing EQing for the room, doing your crossovers and stuff like that. But we have tons of options here. Let's say we want to do a multi-band compressor. We want to do an enhancer. We can do all of this. But I think I'm going to focus on a channel strip here. The mastering channel strip is going to give us an EQ, a tape machine, an enhancer, and a limiter. Let's go ahead. I've actually never used the tape machine since they updated it in the new firmware. So let's see how this sounds. Now, this is actually pretty interesting. I'm kind of feeling like I want to revisit some of what I'm doing here. Let's go to the elements for our mix bus, right? Let's solo up the drums. Let's listen to the drums. And it's here. I feel like the high frequencies are just a little bit too in your face. So I know we have a de-esser on the drums, and I think that's what's causing a little bit of pumping. So that's why I tend to like to use the dual dynamic EQ. We'll do a high pass filter, and this is actually going to be a low shelf. And maybe we could go ahead and do a little bit of changing for the overheads or for the room mics, right? Let's go for a distressor for the room mics. Yeah, that did a lot. Swapping out the 1176 for the distressor and then changing the dynamic EQ to kind of add a little bit more softening of the frequencies on the drums is making it so my bus processing can kind of be a little bit more intense. Now, honestly, I feel like I want to have something more subtle and more invisible for my drum bus or for my master bus, because I feel like the mix is actually not bad.
You better run, you better come round the body.
I like the Fair Kid. It's just a Fairchild emulation. This is the 6070. I believe that might be the mono version of it. I believe that's the mono Fairchild. Is that the mono Fairchild? No, that's the stereo one. All right, yeah, that's the stereo or dual mono one. I think, which one is the mono one? It is the 660. The Fairchild 660 is the mono one. This is the stereo one. I think the Fairchild is a good one. It's adding a little bit of compression, but it's not adding too much punch. And I think for the processor here, the channel strip was a pretty good idea, but there's just too much going on here. Maybe we can go for a bus channel instead, where we have different types of saturation. We can go for a vintage channel, SSL channel, where it gives us a gate dynamics and everything, or even like a Neve channel. But I think the mastering might be the best bet. If we turn on the limiter, it shouldn't be doing anything at all, which is good. We don't really need it to be doing anything. And what we want is we're going to maybe use the enhancer.
You better run, you better come round the body.
Now the stereo enhancer, or just the enhancer itself, is a pretty cool plugin. It adds harmonics by doing, like, I think distortion or EQ and distortion on the 3 bands. You select the frequencies, minimum and max. And then you have the stereo imaging, which is going to be your levels. It's going to basically be mid-side, right? And then you have your spread for the low-mid frequencies, or the low-mid field, I believe. And it's basically just everything past the mono spectrum is going to be stereoized or widened out. And then you have your mono, which will be your level and pan. So it's pretty cool. We could do that for everything. And I kind of dig this. I dig what it's doing. Let's bypass it. It's a subtle thing. I don't like to use this heavy-handedly, because this is how you get things to be way too harsh, way too aggressive. And what was that? And honestly, just a little bit unruly, but not bad. The EQ is going to be a Moog EQ, which is going to be great if you want to do some high frequency shine. It's great if you want to do just basic timbral shifts, especially because it is a very, very, what would be the word? It's a mastering bus EQ, even though people use it on channels and drums and vocals and guitar, pretty much on everything. It is designed mostly to be a mastering EQ. So maybe we can do some fine tuning, right? Let's see. We'll do some tweaking and we'll see if we can get any tones that are making it sound better.
know, yeah. Hey, Joe, you better run, you better cut down the body. Around me, I know, yeah. Hey, Joe, you better run, you better cut down the body.
Honestly, I feel like forcing bus processing isn't always the best thing to do, especially in this case. I feel like it sounds pretty good. I don't want to do the master bus. The only thing I would do for the mastering is probably keep the enhancer and the limiter just to make sure that we're not getting clipping. But the tape machine, it sounds fine, but we don't need all that distortion. We're adding distortion all along the channels. And remember that this is going to add a little bit of latency to your signal. So the more and more that this all stacks up, then more and more you're going to have stuff in your signal chain that's going to add latency. For the EQ, I might want to go for something a little bit more more surgical. In this case, I would probably go for just the stock wing EQ or even the Pultec, not the Pultec, the API, because this is a very nice like tonal shifting EQ.
Around me, I know, yeah. Hey, Joe, you better run, you better cut down the body. Around me, I know, yeah. Hey, Joe, you better run, you better.
So it is a little more subtle, especially when you're doing bus processing. You don't want it to be very, very, very apparent, especially because if it's super, super aggressive, it's going to sound weird. One big thing that I've learned from working in recording studios and recording bands is when you're being very heavy-handed, like purposely heavy-handed with things already sound good, it usually over-processes and over-bakes the sound, which can cause a lot of issues. I don't think this is being over-processed. I think this is just being subtle enough where it's doing a little bit here and there. I will say, though, the only main issue with having an insert pre-fader is that you're not actually going to be able to have the EQ feed into the processing. You're going to have it post-fader, which is probably better. This way, whatever EQ changes I do here or shifts I do here will be reflected and feed into the processing that I want to use for my master bus. Let us go into the channels a little bit and let's just see. Overall, I think we're in a pretty good place. Let me just see if I want to do any tweaks to like my reverbs.
Around me, I know, yeah. Hey, Joe, you better run, you better cut down the body.
So I'm hearing that there's still some interesting resonance going on. There we go. Something like that might help. Cool. I like that. I definitely think that's a little bit better. It is changing it just a touch. So let's update our preset. And this is where we're going to create our before and after preset. So we're going to mute the effects sends, and we're going to bypass all the processing that we did. And this is just so that we can create the before and after scene. I know you guys have seen me do this a lot. It's just this is significantly easier to create two separate scenes that are going to give us a before and after with level, with pan, with how we did the routing, especially because all of this adds up to our signal flow, even though we are using a digital summing mixer because it is a digital console. There is, the possibility of the coding on the console being wrong. And since the Wing does have its newest update for the firmware that hasn't been tested that much, let's just go for it. Let's see, like, hey, is this processing doing better or worse for us? Let's go to the master bus and we'll bypass that Fairchild, we'll bypass that EQ, and we'll bypass that insert. And let's create our mix off preset. And let's do an A-B. So this is mix off.
Around me, I know, yeah. Hey, Joe.
And effects on. Nothing has changed, just the effects inserts.
Around me, I know, yeah. Hey, Joe. You better run, you better go, everybody. Oh, yeah.
It's cool. I mean, it can add some nice depth and some nice weight, but we do have other processors. Let's try using the Psycho Bass, right? This is basically Waves R Bass. It's literally Waves R Bass. If I grab R Bass and let us, wrong preset. Let us go to camera 2. And we bring up R Bass. R Bass basically is very simple. You select a frequency, you select the intensity or how much, and then your output gain. Very, very simple. But what this does is this creates upper harmonics to synthesize the sound of a more low end in the mix without actually adding real low end in the mix. And if you see, this has intensity, basically how much, the crossover, and then the gain. So it's going to be your output gain. Because if you have this all the way down, that's just a bunch of the sub bass. Now, this is a very, very, very aggressive way of processing your bass if you want to add more low end to your mix. But if you are doing subs and tops separate using a matrix, I would actually recommend doing this if you're using smaller subwoofers. I've done a bunch of events where we're using QSCs, smaller QSCs, or even Behringer subs. I have some Behringer subs, not the best subs, but they're affordable. And what I do is I actually use this plugin to enhance the sound and the feel of my subwoofers without distorting the bass and without clipping. I've never broken subs using this. I have had lots of engineers who use something like a subharmonic enhancement plugin, which basically generates subharmonic frequencies. You can see this is the Midas sub monster. This is based off of a piece of hardware where you select the center frequency and that becomes band 3. So you can actually see it change in real time. And this is basically your fundamental. These are your sub octave fundamentals at 25, 34, and they change depending on the frequency you select. And then you have your upper harmonics. So it's kind of like how with our bass, it's only your fundamental and your harmonics that are above to make it seem like you're having more low end, but you're not. Versus this, which it creates real low end. And if you have a system that cannot handle low end, this is going to be how you blow your system. It sounds amazing. And if you're using something like an L-acoustic system with really nice big subs like KS28, 26 or 28, I forgot what they're called, the dual subs, this actually can be done pretty well. But if you have something like a QSC 181, use the Psycho bass. This is going to give you upper harmonics. It's going to sound bigger and fatter, but it's going to be very punchy and detailed. Now for our master bus, excuse me, we could also try the exciter. This is the Aphex Oral Exciter. This is a very simple plugin that's going to allow you to have harmonics generated. But keep in mind, this is going to be only for the upper harmonics. So if you want to have this, this is going to be basically if you have a very dull mix. Personally, I almost never use this thing. I think what we're going to stick to is honestly the enhancer here. This is really cool. We can solo it up here and we can actually listen to what we're enhancing. And then, of course, you have your low-mid frequency spread, or I think it's low-mid field. And then you have your levels and panning for your left and right for your stereo. Now, this is a cool tool. But this is also a tool that gets very, very overused and can get very, very over exaggerated very easily. So I would stay away from using something like this aggressively. If you are going to do it with a master chain where it's going to have less options. You're not going to be able to solo it up, and you're just going to basically be listening to it. Overall, I think this is a pretty good mix, especially considering that if we listen to the before, we can really hear how different this sounded, right? This is stream mix off.
Round me, I know, yeah. Hey, Joe, you better run, you better.
I like it. I think this is a very good overall general mix. What do you guys think? Let me know. What are any questions you guys have? And I think we're pretty much good. I think this is a very good mix for a stream. Anyone would be very happy to have this for their live stream. Now, there are some little things that you do have to keep in mind when you are doing a live stream. I just dropped my stylus pen. I'm not picking it up. When you're doing all this processing, because you're adding micro amounts of latency, it's very good to keep that in mind. And there's actually a way to measure it. You can either use Smart, or you could use a tools that people have already made and used. One of them is this right here. This is something you can find just by doing a quick Google search, and it's going to tell you the latency in milliseconds if you're operating at 48 kilohertz. So the precision limiter is going to add 1.9 milliseconds of latency. The graphic EQ, the API, this is as an insert effects rack, not as a channel insert, a channel strip effect. This is all stuff that adds micro amounts of latency. You can see that most of them is actually pretty consistent at 0.71, 0.73 for the speaker manager. The combinator only adds 0.75 milliseconds of latency, which is very, very good for a multi-band compressor. That's amazing. That's astonishingly good. The enhancer. And then we have stuff like the mastering limiter or the mastering channel strip, where you'll notice that the channel strips don't add multiple layers of latency because you have multiple things. It's an FPGA setup, right? Which means that because it's using FPGA chips and FPGA, pretty much everything, it's basically programmed in a way where, hey, if my signal chain is, your channel strip, which adds like less than a millisecond of latency, your whole channel, if you add the exciter and then you add another thing on top of it, it's going to add almost a millisecond of latency, and then almost another millisecond or 2 milliseconds with the sub-octaver. But if you do like something that's in a channel strip chain where it's like, oh, it's going to be this, 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 and this as one slot, it actually only uses that one maximum amount of latency because everything's going in that line. It's really interesting, but you'll see that the mastering channel strip only adds the same amount of latency as the limiter adds, which is the highest latency thing in that chain. So it's a very cool thing to have, and it's a very good thing to have in your back pocket, because if you're ever doing time alignment or time alignment, then you can go ahead and say, you know what, I want to delay the input of, let's say, this channel by a certain amount of milliseconds, and that will compensate for it. In this case, it would be samples, because it's like 0.71. It's so minute. It would be like 36 samples. It's like very specific frequency amounts, right? There, boom, 34 samples. That's how much adding an insert would be. And you would just have to have that on every single channel that you have when you insert an insert here. I don't do that for the bass and stuff like that, because let's be honest, when I add an insert on the bass, it's the only bass. The guitar, it's the only guitar The saxophone, the vocals, I don't really mind that much because those instruments are pretty much always going to be a slightly off time because guitar players, bass players, vocalists, they're always going to be slightly moving back and forth in and out of time. The same with the drums, but the problem with doing it on drums is if you do an insert on the drums, that's all one cohesive instrument, right? All of these microphones are capturing multiple parts of one instrument and they're all being played back at once. So if my kick drum is suddenly out of phase, I lose punch and detail on my kicks. Let me solo up the bass, the drum bus, and just show you that.
Found me, I know, yeah. Hey, Joe, you better run, you better go grab the body.
And it's even more apparent if you do something like the drums, like the snare, top and bottom. You hear how thin that sounds? That's like a literal night and day difference. And the same thing happens is if you have an insert here, where now it's in phase and we add an insert and we don't delay compensate the latency, check out what happens. We're not even having anything doing anything. It's subtle because it's very small amounts of latency, but it is adding a latency. Now, if we do something like the sub-octaver, which adds more latency, and always remember with the effect slots, if you actually have a channel inserted on an effect slot, even if it's blank, and you turn it on, it will add micro latency because it's automatically putting it in that buffer zone. And one thing to keep in mind, and that's with all digital consoles, do not add something onto an effect slot and have it blank because when you do this and you add an effect on it, it's going to pop in and out. It's going to cut out, right? So watch this. I'm going to play this. You heard that for a second, it cut out, right? And it's just that one channel. So if we go for something like the kick drum and we put it on effect slot, whatever, 10, we turn it on and we put something on. Versus if you bypass it. Even with the effects mix all the way down, you're able to hear the popping and clicking when you have it on. So whenever you are switching between effects in a live situation, do not leave the insert on or put it on a different effect slot. Like let's say you're using this one, make sure whatever you want to switch it to is already instantiated because then you'll be able to switch to that effect slot with it on and not have a click or a pop. But yeah, I think we're pretty much good on this. The mix sounds good. I like it. And I think that's it. We're pretty much done on this mix, especially when we do the before and after. This is a night and day difference. Now, if there's any questions, I think this would be a great time. Please comment any questions you guys have. If not, I'm actually going to be going over some things that were asked in the same comments where they reminded me that, hey, on the bus processing, I did not turn my pan linking because normally it's pan linked already. And that was how to do mid-side processing. So while I wait for any comments or any questions, I'm going to be talking about the mid-side processing. The Behringer Wing automatically does stereo and mid-side processing just by default. which means that if you have a mid-side channel, you're able to have it here automatically. Let's unmute this and solo it, and we'll put this onto my main output bus just so that everyone can hear it. And we're going to bring this up. This is nothing, right? Let's put the overheads on here, 15 and 16. And you can see that it's stereo, right? If I play it, and I can have the balance between the left and the right side. But if I'm going to do mid-side, it's going to be something a little bit different. So what we're going to do is grab an MS matrix. And I believe I have one. What is the company that makes it? Oh my gosh. They make Span. What is Span? Span is by Voxengo. So it's Voxengo. Let's go for the Voxengo mid-side matrix. It's a free plugin. That is, what is it called? Ooh, do I not have it installed? I don't have it installed. Oh, that sucks. I thought I had the mid-side matrix installed in here. It's weird. I always have that plugin installed. So there is a MS Matrix plugin. I think Waves has one. I think it's like the what is it? The S1 something. One of the S1 plugins. S1 Imager, and I think it's Matrix Stereo. Okay. So I think this turns it into a mid-side matrix. Yeah, so now we have it in mid-side. And so what we're going to do on the wing is instead of it being stereo, we're going to put mid-side. And now we're going to be able to control the mids and the side balance. But it still is doing the left and right panning. This is our mid-side. So you notice that it does automatic mid-side matrixing. Now, one way you can make it so that your channel is going to be processed properly is by having, if you want to do mid-side processing, is you would have to do it like this. And you'd have to send like 2 different inputs. So let's say your mid mic will be on channel 1 and your side mic will be on channel 2. You need to do it like this. And you would be able to basically have your mid-side processing. And what you would do is, you can see it's in mid-side here. You go into your input section of your routing, and you'd be able to have stuff like polarity control, and it would tell you what channel it's on, stuff like that. And you would basically have to have it like the mid channel would be on channel 15, the side channel would be on channel 16, and then you'd process it separately. And it becomes like this kind of like little annoyance. Personally, mid-side is really cool, but it's not something that I really worry about at all. Like at all. Mostly because of just like this. This is kind of like not necessary, not needed. And whenever I do stereo processing, I just have it like this. If I have it in mid-side, I have it like this. And any type of like mid-side effect that you might need would probably be like using something that would balance the mid-side, which would be the Velvet Imager. This has your mid-side width, where you would have control over your mids and your side, and you don't have to have the stereoizer, or you would need to use the Ultra Enhancer, which has a mid-side widener and a level control, but there really is no way of like individually processing the mids or the sides besides using something like this, or using the Velvet Imager as an insert on both channels, where you could have one be the mids and then the other one would be the sides. And then you'd be able to channel, like process channel left and channel right. So in this case, let's do that. Let's go on 15 and 16. Let's go 16. We'll do this one, and then 15. We'll do it right here. And this will be the sides. And we'll do no sterilizer. No sterilizer. And if we do the same channel for our, so opposite would be mids, sides, and our inputs will be the drums in mid-side mode. We should be able to get mid-side processing going on. That's our middle. And that's our side. So now we're able to process it individually, and we'd be able to just move this in the channel strip or the yeah, that's our mid side. So then we can go ahead and change it in the signal flow, and we'd be able to process just the mids. Do something dumb or ridiculous like that. Personally, I would just do some like basic EQ. And then let's work on the sides. And there, we've just done mid-side processing. It's pretty cool. Okay. Hey, what's up, dude? Can I explain mid-side process, or sorry, the delay compensation? Sure, let's do that. Okay, cool. So let's talk about delay compensation. That's actually a really, really good thing to talk about, especially here. Delay compensation is actually really cool. It's a very important thing to keep in mind when you are doing live sound. So let's make this stereo again, make this none, make this none, and let's go into that. So mid-side processing, or sorry, delay compensation is basically what's going to give you compensating for your latency. So like I showed earlier, we have a chart, right? How much latency does certain plugin inserts cause? Now, if you're doing something like drums, right? Let's look at the chart. If you're doing something like drum mixing and you have to use something like a multi-band compressor, which is going to automatically make it out of phase anyway because of the phase shift, but something like the triple de-esser or like API graphic EQ insert, you're going to basically cause micro delays. And you're right, inside of your DAW, right here, you're actually automatically compensated. So any plugin I insert or do anything, it's going to either move everything backwards or forwards in time automatically. In a live sound situation, you don't have that. The console has all of its delay compensation already preset for its channels. Its effects like going through or whatever is already predefined. So what you're going to have to do is do some type of compensation. So like I said, let's do it with the drums, right? Let's say we have our kick drum. And right now the drums are in phase. They sound really good. Let's play the drums back for ourselves real quick.
Around me, I know, yeah.
So we hear that the drums sound good. The snare is in phase, right? So if you invert the phase, again, it'll sound pancakey. That's because it's out of phase. So if we do not latency compensate or delay compensate something like our drums, it has that ability of getting out of phase again. So right now it's in phase. Let's add an insert to the snare top, right? Let's do it to the snare top. Let's add something that's going to add a high amount of latency, and we'll do it by compounding multiple inserts. So let's use this insert slot, and we use this insert slot. We're not going to use this effect. We're just going to do a graphic EQ, and we will do a what has high latency. So we have the amp sims that have high latency. We have what else? We have the mastering chains. So let's grab 2 mastering chains, right? Mastering chain and mastering chain. We'll turn them on as an insert, but we'll have all the effects bypassed. So they're not doing anything, but they're just in the signal chain, right? So it's in the signal chain. Let's see how the snare top and bottom sound now. So just bypassing the insert effect, you're able to see or hear that it gets a little bit thinner sounding when you have it on. And it actually gets way better if we completely get rid of the insert whatsoever. See how as I add those insert effects to the snare top, the snare bottom loses its impact. So we're going to have to use the mathematical formula that we have here, and that's going to be 1.79 milliseconds, and we're going to times that by 2. So what you're going to need to do is have like a calculator. This is not hard math. It's just this is how it's going to be very simple. So 1.79 times 2, which is like 3.58, is the latency in milliseconds that have been added to this. So if we want to make this snare in time with the snare top now, we need to add that much latency. So it's 3.58. So we're going to go here and we're going to try to get exactly 3.58 samples or milliseconds of latency. So 3.58, and that's 124 samples. So let's play this back now and let's see what happens, right? So we have the snare top and bottom. The snare top has 2 insert effects, and let's see if it gets thicker or thinner sounding when we add the latency on the snare bottom. Here we go. Go for milliseconds and we'll see if it does anything different. I mean, obviously this is 112 milliseconds. This is going to sound horribly out of phase, right? But it's mostly just time aligning because the insert is going to add a certain amount of latency. So let's say we turn on all of this stuff, all right? We make sure it's in the signal flow, even though it's not doing anything whatsoever. We just want to add that latency to see if it's going to be better or worse when we have that delay compensation on, right? This is how it sounds right now. Let's check it out. So that's a pretty noticeable difference. When we add that delay, it's time aligning the signal. I'm getting chat. Oh, there was an ad. My bad, dude. Okay, we can go over it again. Here, that's not a problem. That's not a problem. No problem. Let's do it again. Okay, so we're gonna rewind it because of ads. I kind of find the ads to be very annoying, to be honest. They're on automatically too. I don't even turn them on. Okay, so delay compensation on a live console is very important because when you add an insert effect, let's say you add wave sound grid, right? Or you add super rack performer, you're gonna add latency to your signal chain. And the DAW automatically delay compensates because it has a buffer, right? It has something that's gonna cause latency, not a significant amount, but a amount of latency no matter what between listening and playback. So because of that, it's able to just automatically notice, hey, this plugin has like 100 samples of latency. Let's either push everything forward or move this back, right? But inside of a live console, it has to be as low latency as possible. The Wing is under a millisecond of latency, which is very good. It's like 0.8 milliseconds of latency, which is very, very good. So because of that, there is no delay compensation when you add a plugin because it would have to add that latency across the board. So what happens is you now have to compensate for the delay. And the big thing with delay is stuff like drums, you get phase cancellation. So we have the snare top and bottom as our example. If I take out the phase invert on the snare top, let's take a listen to how this sounds. Or sorry, this phase invert on the snare bottom. Sounds paper thin. And now it sounds full, you get that impact, right? Well, what happens if we add plugins into our signal chain, right? We're gonna add more latency. So we need to compensate for that latency. And it's mostly important for the drums because the drums are multiple microphones aiming at multiple instruments, but they're being played at the same time at the same source. So the snare top and bottom is the best one. So let's say we add a channel strip, 2 channel strips to the snare top because it just sounds so cool, right? It's now going to be out of time with the snare bottom. Even though we have the phase inversion, listen to how it sounds. It's not going to sound as good. It sounds a little bit papery again. Not as much as when it was completely out of phase, but it is slightly thinner. Hear that impact on the low end? To me, it's a very noticeable difference. You can hear how it gets a little bit thinner sounding. Let me know if you can hear that. If I can try to go over a little bit better, but let me know if you're able to hear that slight like thinness that happens. Okay. So what we want to do is we need to measure the latency and compensate for that automatically, right? So like I said, the Behringer Wing has most of its plugins already mapped out on the latency. You can just Google this. This is on like their Facebook group. This is what made me join the Facebook group because I actually use this. So I am using the mastering channel strip to cause latency, right? So it's 1.7 milliseconds of latency. And from what I've noticed, when you bypass the insert on the console, it doesn't seem to have that latency. It minimizes it. It still has inserts when you have on the effects insert slot, but it's definitely a lot less. So we've turned everything on and we now know that we have 1.79 milliseconds of latency on this one insert. We also have 1.79 milliseconds of latency on the second insert. So that means we have a total, and if you don't do math very well, just do a calculator, of 1.79 times 2, 3.58 milliseconds of latency, right? Now, it's really hard to get that exact measurement. What is it? 3.58 down here. So what I recommend is you go into your samples, and this is going to be much easier. You're going to get 3.58, right? So you're just going to keep going, be very, very slow. And you can actually use your encoder for this. So I'm going to use my console's encoder because it's going to be a lot easier for me. Right there, 3.58. So now I have 3.58 milliseconds or 172 samples of latency. This is just on the snare bottom. Let's engage this and disengage this, and let's see if we can actually hear the difference in the sound. So it's off right now. It definitely helped improve the latency. It's a little bit tighter. Now, these are old measurements, so for all we know, these could be off. These measurements could totally be off, and maybe they need to be reanalyzed. And one thing that's very good to do is if you have smart or open sound meter, you should actually measure the latency of your inserts, because I think they might have been changed on the last update. You can definitely hear how it helps add back that body. And we could really try to fine tune it if we're not sure if this is the exact amount that we need. That sounds really good to me. It's not exact, and I hope you can hear this. Let me know if you can hear it. But it sounds way better. Now, the exact measurement that we had before was 3.58, and we're at 3.62. Let's try 3.58. Real quick. So 3.58 is doing pretty good. I think 3.2, oh, hold on, 3. I need 3. So that's why it's not perfect. We need 3 milliseconds, right? So we're going to go up more. 3.58. I was at 2.58. Let's try 3.58. There we go. So 172 samples of latency. So 3.58 milliseconds, that definitely sounded better. And that's why 2.58 sounded better. That's why 3 point something sounded better than 2.58, because it was still a millisecond off. But let's listen one more time. No delay compensation, right? This is just 2 inserts on the snare. To me, that's a very big difference. Let me know if you can hear that difference or not. But I can definitely hear it on my IEMs. It's a huge difference. So that means that every single drum channel needs to be latency compensated, delay compensated by 3.58 milliseconds. So now you have to come into here and delay every single one of these channels by that amount. It's a little tedious, but it is going to be the way to have everything in phase, because since this has already been phase inverted, if we don't have the latency and we don't have the invert of the phase, it's kind of like an in-between gray zone where not having the phase inverted is still out of phase, but it's more in phase because the time alignment. But if you time align it and then do the phase inversion, it has so much more impact. It's perfectly in phase. But because of that, if we want the rest of the tracks to be in phase, we need to also delay them by 3.58. And to be honest, it would actually be easier to just go here, copy this, and I believe it's on your input, it's your delay section, and you would delay the rest of the drums by that amount, and you hit copy, and all of the channels now have the same delay except for the snare top. You mean respect the overheads or double mics drums, right? Yeah, kind of. Not just the overheads. So what I'm doing right now is I'm going through the snare top and bottom, and I'm adding 2 inserts, and I'm showing you how there is latency that's added by the inserts, and you compensate it using the delay to make the snare top and bottom microphone sound in phase. It adds more impact, and it adds more power. But because you have multiple parts of the drum kit being mic'd at once, having one thing out of phase can make the whole kit sound a little bit thinner. So if we have all of the delay compensations turned off and still have the insert on that snare, this is how the whole drum kit sounds. Sounds okay, but we're losing some impact, right? So if we add the delay compensation on all the channels, any type of phase inversion that we've needed to do to make the drum kit in phase is maintained, and now the whole kit is in time with itself. Automatically, I can hear a lot more impact on that kick drum. So watch, we're gonna create a new scene, right? And we're just going to do delay. Right, we're gonna have delay right here. And then we're going to create one that has no delay. Okay, so we have delay, no delay. So this is going to be delay, and then we're going to play it with no delay. So if you look at the top right here where it says delay by the color and no delay, you'll hear that when I have delay on, the whole kick drum sounds a little bit punchier. Listen to the top end of the kick. You hear the top end of the beater, that tick, tick, that click, and you also get an overall more impactful sound. When you have it off, no delay compensation, you're actually getting like a muffled kick drum sound, and it almost sounds a little bit phasey, where it's like sucked in, like the mid frequencies, the high end is a little bit extracted. I'm going to do that one more time, right? So we're going to start off with no delay, and then I'm going to switch to delay, and you'll see it on the top. The little blue letters, it'll be no delay and delay. So let's just be quiet, or I'll be quiet, and we'll listen. And to my ears, I'm definitely hearing it more aggressively with the impact. It's more like a transient response thing where I'm hearing more oomph and I'm feeling it a little bit more from the kick. And it's also the snare. It sounds kind of papery, maybe a little like just like flat, I guess, when you have the delay compensation off. Listen to the snare.
Around me, I know, yeah.
Right? It just has a little bit more oomph. Let me know if you could hear that. If you couldn't, that's totally fine, because I actually noticed it's a lot less apparent than you would think. And that's because we're actually not doing a lot of delay compensation. It's only like 3 milliseconds or so. So that's actually pretty good. I mean, that's not a lot of latency that's needed. Yeah, it's 3.58 milliseconds. That's not really noticeable by human hearing, but it is enough for the things to sound a little bit out of time with themselves. And now you only have to do this for the drums, because we've only inserted the inserts on the snare, and everything else, it doesn't matter. You don't need to delay compensate the whole session. Some people do. Some people are very, very meticulous, and they're like, hey, I have an insert on the bass, so I'm going to delay compensate the entire session. Personally, I'm going to be honest with you, I never do that. I don't care. It doesn't affect the sound very much. And to be completely honest, it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter unless you're doing an entire parallel mix. If you're doing a parallel mix, yes, you want to delay compensate the entire thing. But that's where it becomes a little bit of a hassle in time alignment, because then you have to calculate every single element, and you have to compensate for, like, hey, I have an insert on my drums and I have an insert on my bass. So that should also be calculated in there. Oh, I see you left a comment. Let me read the comment. I had a lot of difference in sound when I'm going to move this to this other screen because I am blind. I had a lot of difference in sound when I've tried to compensate the distance between all of the mics. No, it's not your English. It's because I don't have my glasses on. I don't even know where they are. Oh, here they are. There they are, all dirty. I need glasses, and they kind of like create like a big reflection for the lights, so I don't wear them. But I'm blind, so I couldn't see it. I had to move it to the other screen. Yeah, had a lot of difference in sound when I tried to compensate the distance between all of the components towards the overheads in general. I don't use inserts. Yeah, so actually the overheads is one of the biggest things that can cause phasing and stuff like that. So it's really cool and a really important thing to keep in mind. And yeah, you don't use inserts that often. I don't, not on my drums, but I do use inserts a lot. Especially for, let me get rid of these, remove and remove. There we go. I use inserts a lot on my bass a lot. But yeah, that's just something to keep in mind when you're delay compensating things. It's good to have, because if you ever have that, we're like, hey, I have to have something to correct an issue, and it's like a multi-mic'd source. Basically, yeah, if you have overheads, room, and you have a kick and snare and a toms, and then you have your overheads, and you have an insert, you're going to want to have time alignment. And with the overheads too, yeah, that's usually a thing where you're going to need time alignment. You can either measure that out, or you could always just invert the phase. That's what I did here in this session. And I agree. Let's say firmware 3.1 has reduced the needs for inserts. Yeah, honestly, yeah. I agree with you. I really like firmware 3.1. Them adding every single dynamic section in the compression and the gate section is amazing. The only thing I really wish they add is I wish they would have the API graphic EQ as a channel EQ, because I love that graphic EQ. It's so good. And I always use it on my buses. You can see I have it across the buses here for the guitar, the drums. And I think we were going to use it on the main bus, but we went for, yeah, we do. We have it on the main bus. So personally, I think firmware 3.1 is great. Whatever comes after that, I really hope they add the graphic EQ. Oh, yeah. They add even an API preamp in the future. Yeah, I agree. That would be amazing. I would love that. The API, an API distortion and a Neve distortion is absolutely phenomenal. That would be amazing. API Neve, yeah. Even you know what? Honestly, what I would love is if they just added a distortion module, like what PreSonus does. Let me see if I have the PreSonus. It's like the Studio Live or something. I don't, oh, hold on. I'm in PreSonus software. Hold on. Let me bring up this mix window. Something that you can do on your mix buses, right, is you have something called a console shaper. And this is in the PreSonus consoles, where you can have different types of like distortion and saturation. And I think it's this one. This one. You have a Neve, you have a Telefunken, and you have an SSL. I really like this. This is one thing that's really cool. It just adds crosstalk. And I know all consoles have this. Digico has their tube distortion. Avid has plugins. And then the Wing has the SSL one, the Soul Warmth Pre. But I would love if they just have a distortion module. I think that's what they should add, is a distortion or a preamp module. And you should be able to switch between like Neve, API, SSL. And I mean, they can if they want to have like a tube stage, like a Telefunken. But they don't have to. I don't really find that necessary. But I would love it. But yeah, I agree. I definitely think they should add a more distortion modules, or add like a multi-distortion module. And yeah, firmware 3.1 has been an amazing thing. The only thing that needs to be updated is Wing Edit. I noticed it has some glitches. Okay, may I ask you, when do you use a bus and when do you use a insert? So that's wholly up to you, right? It really depends on the setup. So a lot of the time when I am working, oh, give me 1 second, just 1 second. Amazon supposedly delivered something, but they didn't, so whatever. Sorry. So lots of times when I'm working a show, it really depends. So if I am the only one mixing, so I'm mixing the band and I'm mixing front of house, I only have essentially 12 buses that I can use. And if the band has lots of elements, I'll tend to have to need to use about usually about 5 to 10 like aux sends for their monitors and for their IEMs. So I tend to not have that many mix buses that I can use. But I will use buses for group processing. So like I have for the drums here, we have all of the drums here together in one. And that way I can say like, well, I want to do a enhancer, or a bus compressor or some basic bus EQ,
Found me, I know, yeah. Hey, yeah.
right? That's what the drums sound like without anything on the bus. They sound really good.
Found me, I know, yeah.
But I like doing bus processing to add like a cohesion. So like I like the way the drums sound, but I want them to sound more together, like one instrument, and also kind of have a little bit more punch. I'll add a bus compressor.
Found me, I know, yeah. Hey, yeah.
And then I add my API EQ. In this case, I actually have gone for a insert.
Found me, I know, yeah.
So bus processing is really when you want to mix all the elements together and process them together. Where dedicated inserts is more like if you just need to do something to one thing. And like a perfect example is the bass. I don't want to really do bus processing on the bass. I just do it so I can have it like kind of more in time. But I mean, the bass has a sans amp, right? I don't need to make an entire bus and waste a bus process, like a bus channel, just to add a sans amp to the bass. I mean, if we listen to the bass before anything, any processing whatsoever, this is what it sounded like. A very good bass, right? But I want to process it, right? I want to add some distortion. I want to add an EQ. I want to add a compressor. But it still sounds like a DI. So in this case, I'm not going to send it to a bus to like do more crazy processing. I'm just going to add an insert. Like, hey, this just needs to sound like it's going through a sans amp, right? Put it into a sans amp. I mean, right there, I bypass everything and you just lose so much impact. So it's really dependent on what you're doing. Personally, my personal opinion, I use inserts to either do like graphic EQs, to do reverbs, and to do individual processing to channels like the bass guitar. And I use buses when I want to group channels together and have everything have its own profile. So I want to EQ only all the drums. Like if I want to EQ all the drums, I put them on a bus and I do whatever I want, and I can use an insert there. If I only want to affect the guitar, I'm not going to do it on a bus. I'm just going to put an insert on the guitar and mess it with it like that. I hope that answers your question, but a lot of it is subjective. I mean, what do you prefer? Do you prefer having an insert? Do you prefer having just a bus? Because one thing is I use inserts for my graphic EQs and stuff like that. So on my matrix, there's always going to be a graphic EQ, right? There's always going to be a graphic EQ as an insert. For my sub, there's always going to be a psycho bass. And for like my delay, there's always going to be probably just like an API. Or for this, I will just actually delay the channel by the 71 samples that are needed to delay compensate this. Because usually for delays, I don't need a graphic EQ. Okay, so does the insert add... Okay, that's a great question. Actually, no. So, no, you do not add latency by using the channel strip. You don't add any latency whatsoever. This is already baked into the FPGA of the channel. So anything that's here that is not an effects rack insert is already designed as part of the latency of the signal flow. So using the gate, using the transient designer, using the compressor, using the dynamic EQ does not add latency. These are all real-time effects that are already in the signal flow. They're already there. So that's why you could just use your plugin inserts and do whatever you want, and you never have to worry about it. I don't know if you noticed, but I did not have to do any delay compensation for any of my drums. I only phase inverted ones that were out of phase. You say you have a bus for each effect. Does he mean like your reverbs and delays? Because yes, if you're doing reverbs and delays, I use buses for reverbs and delays. You see right here, I have my reverb right here. This is my vocal hall. This is my plates reverb. Oh, let's move this. This should be here. So we have my hall, we have my plates, and we have my delay, and then I have my concert hall, which again should be right here. And yeah, so for my reverbs and delays and my time-based effects, I have them on a bus. I always have them on a bus because that way I can send different parts and different balances to them, and I can mix them separately. So like for my snare, I've sent the snare top to the drum reverb, but I have not sent as much of the snare bottom, and I have not sent the kick or the toms, but I did send the room reverb and a lot more of the overheads. So that way I'm able to have a very controlled balance of what I want. And I actually think maybe I'm going to have a little bit less snare top, and I'm going to go for more snare bottom. And that way I can have more of a higher frequency spread. Is there a limit to those effects on the bus? So the buses have the exact same effects line as the mains and the matrices. So as far as limits, no. I think you only have one compressor. You don't have a gate. And it should be the same thing on your mains. You don't have a gate section. You only have a compressor section. That's the only limit, is you have one dynamics and one EQ, but you still have two inserts. So you can use two effects racks. So on my buses, if you see here, if I go to compressor, I have all of the gates. I have the transient designer. I have the dual dynamic EQs. I have all of the compressors. All of the modules are still there. And on my EQ, the only difference is that we get the API EQ. We need the API EQ on the channels. That thing's amazing. And I love this for drums. And it sucks that it's not on my kick drum. But yeah, there's no real limit. You still get the two effect slots, which means you can have inserts on anywhere of the signal chain, anywhere, and you can grab any effects. So you can do this, and then you have your second one. I think the only limitation on the effects racks is that the channels 1 through 40, and I believe even the, channels 1 through 40 are all able to go into the Dugan Auto Mix, which is on Insert Effects Rack 2. You'll see right here, Insert 1, Insert 2. This is post fader. You will see that you have Auto Mix 1 and 2, X and Y, and you don't have that on the buses, the matrices, or the auxes. Any other questions? Give me a second. Think I'm getting. Oh, nice. Company is sending me something. I'm getting a new IEM to test out pretty soon. Cool. I think we're doing pretty good. I'm wondering if there's anything else I should be going over with this. Let's check out this mix. I think we're good on this mix. I'm actually really happy with it. I think it sounds really good. Any other questions? Anyone else have any other questions? Oh, okay. Oh, sweet. Okay. Let's take a look at this. We have another question. Let me see. If I can profit from your kindness, I still have a lot of doubt about when to use a matrix or not, and when using DCA or a bus group. Okay, yeah, that's great. Okay, so when to use a matrix? Personally, I always use a matrix. Always, without a doubt, I use it every single show. And let me explain why. To me, the matrix is what's going to feed the speakers, because this is where you can mess up the EQ and do whatever you want. You could ravage it essentially, right? Let's reset this. Cool. Oh yeah, you too? Okay, cool. Yeah, well, good thing you asked. So this is actually how my sessions are usually set up. At least this is my preset for the stream, right? But you see that I have mains, sub mains, I have my headphones, and then I have the matrix left, right, sub, and delay. So matrices are really good because I will use processing on the master bus to do enhancements, right? I'll do compression, I will do a little bit of stereo imaging, and I'll do a little bit of like sweetening EQ. Maybe some harmonic enhancement. But I will not do room correction on the main bus, because if I ever have to send just a left, right to a recording or to a separate room, I want to have something clean that sounds very good. My matrices are used for correcting the room. So most rooms do not sound very good, right? So let's say matrix 4 is going to our, let's say it's going to a room. We're going to color code it the dark gray, and it's going to go to the recording, right? Not to the recording. It's going to go to the side room where they have 2 L-acoustic speakers, right? And this will just be side room. So I'm using a matrix because I'm going to have to do a separate EQ to that room, right? That room is going to sound different than my main room. And because of that, I'm going to need to do lots of tweaks. So this way, let's say that room has horrendous reverbs and reflections, right? And because of that, we have this giant hump of frequency content in the lower mid-range. I can now EQ that out of that room and kind of create a custom EQ that's going to help mitigate all of the issues of the room. Let's say it has a really resonant nasal frequency at like 4K, and then it's feeding back a lot in the higher frequencies. So we need to just do something like this, and then do an insert slot as a graphic EQ, and just like tame some unwanted ugliness. All of that's going to be done on my matrix, because my matrix is correcting for the room and correcting for any problems. That way, let's say there's feedback at 2K, kill 2K, right? I don't want it to kill 2K on my mix. I want to kill 2K on that one speaker that sounds bad, that one matrix, right? And it's the same thing I do for my delay. My delay has a compressor just to make sure that it's not distorting. I have a compressor here, and then I have a compressor here. and I'll have a different EQ. So main matrix left, right will have this EQ. The subs will have my crossovers. This is a very big thing because I do subs and tops crossovers separately. So I will have my crossover. And I can have it set like this. And let's say the crossover is at 100 hertz. Now nothing's going to go into the subs past 100 hertz. So we won't blow the subs or overload them. And we can do the same thing for this one. We will have a crossover for the low frequencies at 100 hertz. And now we know that the speakers are not getting anything that the subs are getting. So I get to separate my subs and tops. I can create a crossover, and I can do room corrective EQ. I do events for this one guy in LA where he likes to use VRXs, and those are horrendous speakers. And I end up having to do this crazy EQ to them all the time. And I don't want to do that on my mains. I want to do that only on the matrix because I want my mains to be a very clean, pristine recording for the event. And I want whatever I send to the live stream to not have crazy EQs that cut and fix all the problems. Yeah, matrices have so much more sense. Yeah. And then there's also another thing where if you're doing more post-production stuff where the room is more designed properly, or you're doing just crossovers, instead of using a graphic EQ, like let's say you're doing something for more post-production stuff, you actually have a speaker manager that has a dynamic EQ, it has a limiter, and it has a crossover filter that has time alignment. So if you're doing something like a surround sound setup, you can actually set up a bunch of these and do time alignment and stuff like that. It's really good to have matrices for that. Okay, when to use a DCA in a group buses. So DCAs should be used always. Let me load this back up. Well, we're going to erase all the crazy stuff I did. So DCAs are digitally controlled amplifiers, right? It basically controls all of the elements at once. So they're a little bit different than buses. Buses have everything that you send to them, and it processes the audio. So for my drums, you see that I have an enhancer insert, and I have an EQ, and I have a bus compressor. Right? It makes it sound nicer. It gives it more color and flavor. A DCA does not actually process audio. It is only a volume control and a mute. And I have my DCAs here. So if I mute the drums, I can actually tell it, you're going to have all of the drums on your DCA. And we're actually going to add the room mic as well. So we should have the room mic. Right? So we have all the drums on my DCA, and I can mute them. For the bass, I can do the same thing. We'll add just the bass. And then for the percussion, we don't have a percussion DCA. And let's see, we have the guitar DCA. We have vocal DCAs. And we'll do the background vocal DCA will be, the percussion DCA will be the sax. So for DCAs, we're able to have everything on just channels. And it's really good if you want to be able to mute and unmute things very quickly, right? It's just level control. So think of DCAs as, oh, hey, I'm mixing, everything sounds good. Suddenly, hey, I want the drums louder. Well, if you're on a DCA, you can be like, okay, I'll turn up the drums. Or, hey, the drums are too loud. You can turn down the drums, and if you go to the channels, you'll see these secondary lines, and that's actually where your DCAs are doing something. So if we add the DCA here, we can actually see that the DCA is controlling the volume of everything and muting everything. It's working like what a bus does, what a group bus does, but without processing the audio, meaning that you're not going to be able to do any control. It's just levels. Why not just mute the bus instead? That's a great question. And it's actually a very big preference thing. Personally, I like having DCAs because when I'm focusing on just mixing something, let's say the show's going well, you don't need to worry about balancing and EQing. Sometimes it's a lot easier to just look at this and see, oh, I need to mute the band, right? Mute the band. Oh, mute the monitors, mute the DCA, mute the effects. Oh, the band's back up. Turn this back on, whatever, right? It's more like a preference thing because DCAs control anything. They don't actually control just channels. So right here I have a monitors, right? This could actually do my buses. So bus 6 through 12, right? That's the band's monitor wedges. So let's say the band is off stage, they're not playing anymore, and we're having speeches, right? Someone's on the mic speaking with a speech, you mute the monitors. All of them at once. Oh, the show is over, right? And you have a ton of matrices going on. You highlight all your matrices, and you mute your matrices. So it's just like a workflow thing where it's like, oh, this can control anything. It doesn't just control channels or buses, and you can control your buses. So let's say you have a drum bus, right? Instead of doing this, you can make your drum DCA control the drum bus. And now you have a volume control and a mute for the drum bus and your effects and your bass. Like you can have the whole band right here on one page. You're not going to be able to control the effects and stuff like that, but there is something called DCA spill. And DCA faders meter, let me see where it is. Link channel meter, fader mode fine, disconnect warning. There is a way to do DCA spill. It was added recently to the Wing. It's like a new add-on, and I have not actually checked it out. Activate solo, select solo, follow solo. I forgot where it is. I'm gonna be honest, I have no clue where it is. But there's a way where you can basically select or solo the DCA. And I think soloing it will actually solo the channels, but you can select the DCA and it'll do a DCA spill. I'll look into it where it is. I don't know where it is on Wing Edit, but that way you can actually select your DCAs and it'll actually show you all the channels and you can actually mix them all. It's really cool, and it's a great way of having stuff where it's kind of like your sends on fader mode, where if we go here, you can like control what's being sent to that fader. There's a DCA spill. So if you do DCA spill, boom, everything's there. And it's pretty cool. It's really powerful, and it's a really big tool on how to be able to just like, hey, mute my reverbs. Oh, I want to change the balance of them. DCA spill, and you're able to do it. I don't know how, to be honest, I don't know how to do it on the Wing Edit. Let me see if I can find it on the Wing itself. So DCA mute groups on, global inputs override, channel solo, mute group solo override, plus follow activates solo, send page activates solo. Yeah, I don't know where it is. I know it was added, and I don't know where it is. I'll have to look it up. But there is supposed to be a DCA DCA spill. Oh, fader screen layer link. That's what it is. Fader screen layer link. So I think if I go to DCAs, I think it's that. I think it's fader screen layer link or something. Let me see. I don't know. To be honest, I don't know. There's a DCA spill. I need to look up how to do it. But yeah, your bus processes is all your bus processing. You get to do your channel balancing, you get to do everything, but your buses don't have your mains and your matrices and everything like that. Where a DCA is you just tell it, hey, you're the monitors, you're the matrix, you're the effects, you're that, you're that. So that's why it's good to have both. I use my buses to do the processing and my group everything. And then I will have my DCA to just control the whole mix. And that way I can mute, unmute, and get going really fast. And it's a lot faster having just like 10 faders than having these faders and these faders and these faders and these faders and these faders. Instead of having to do that, I'll just live here and I'll just be like, oh, solo, whatever, mute, bring volume up, volume down, get rid of the, mute the monitors, do whatever you want. I think the Behringer Wing needs to work on a better way of doing a DCA spill. I heard someone say that there is a way to do it now. I just haven't checked it out myself. Any other questions? I think we're getting pretty close to wrapping this up for today. So let me know if there's any other questions and we'll keep going. If not, I'll probably end this in the next couple minutes. I'm going to go look up. I'm going to look up Behringer Wing DCA spill now, because now I'm curious. Let's see. Is there a Behringer Wing DCA spill? Oh, you're welcome, man. Thank you so much. You know what? Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate you guys watching and leaving comments. I actually like the comments things. Okay. So the settings menu, there is supposed to be a DCA spill. Trying to find where it is, though. I don't see DCA spill here. There's metering, there's general. There is I think the DCA spill is on the compact, actually, I think. I think that's only on the compact, and on the Wing full size, you can have a DCA spill. So it's unfortunately. Oh yeah, it says it right here. Let's bring this up. Somehow I got to Reddit. So on Reddit, it says DCAs do spill. There's no sense on fader DCA spills. There's no solo and fader mode. So when you select a DCA, it goes into spill mode and only spill mode. Edited G's confuse the mains behavior. Okay, so it looks like it's on the sub panel. So that would mean let's bring up the Wing compact. So your DCA spill on the Wing would be right here. Wish they would have like better pictures for this thing. Here, okay. So right here, you have your little side menu, and there's supposed to be one for DCAs. And I guess when you hit that, it will actually do a DCA spill, which is pretty cool. No, dude, you guys are both welcome. Thank you guys for watching. I think I am going to call it a day. Thank you guys for watching. It's really fun. And if you guys have any questions, leave comments after the stream. I'm gonna go eat, and hang out. I think my kids are coming home in a little bit, so I'm gonna go hang out with them. But thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you guys want to see next, because I think we just finished the mixing on the Behringer Wing series. It's crazy. I thought this was gonna like take forever, but ended up this is a very, very short little mini series. But yeah. And then if you guys like the way that it sounds, this whole thing was mixed on these little Fosse Audio IEMs, the IM4s. They're like $100. So if you guys are curious about that, they're little open back IEMs. There's like a link or something, but you don't have to get anything. But just so you guys know, this whole thing was mixed on IEMs. I think everything sounded pretty good. And mid-side. Oh, mid-side. Oh, mid-side. I think we talked about mid-side. What questions do you have on mid-side? Let me know your questions. We'll try to go over it, but I think I did go over mid-side earlier, but let's do that. What is your questions about mid-side? Let's do that before we end the stream. Let's go back to camera 4. Oh, dude, no worries. No, we can go over mid-side. No, that's not a problem. We can definitely go over mid-side. So let's go to my DAW. I'm using Studio One. Mid-side is done pretty simply on the Behringer Wing, right? So we're going to use the overheads as an example. So let's load up the scene. And we're going to look at our overheads. So we have the overheads here. You can tell that they're stereo. It's a stereo recording, right? So if we go to camera 4 and let's go to the drums, solo it up. It's stereo, right? Sounds good. It sounds good. Yes, you can natively do mid-side on the wing. It's actually built in. I mentioned a comment that you can't process like mid-side EQ normally. It just does like mid-side like automatic conversion. So we have the stereo overheads for the drums. And what we're going to do is we're going to convert this into mid-side by doing the waves. What is it called? It is the S1 mid-side matrix, right? And this makes it mid-side. So the left is going to be mono. This side, the right is going to be stereo. Here we go. Right, so it sounds a little funky. So if we bypass that mid-side matrix right here, bypass it, that's proper stereo. If we turn it back on, we're going to see that it's not in stereo now. Now it has like a wonky sound. So on the wing, you're going to do this. You're going to go to your input section and you're going to have mono, stereo, or mid-side. Mid-side is going to automatically do the conversion from mid-side mode. So your mono on your left and your right is stereo, and it's going to turn it into mid-side. So if I hit play, it's in true stereo. If we set it to stereo and then I bypass the mid-side matrix, it sounds the same. So turn on the mid-side matrix. Turn on mid-side. So the wing now has converted into mid-side. Now, for those of you who don't know, mid-side processing or recording is where you get one microphone in the center, and it is your mono on channel 1. And then channel 2 is going to be the figure 8 microphone that's going to pick up the side signals, right? And normally what you have to do is you have to have 3 channels to do this. You have mono, your left and your right, and you have it hard panned, and you put the left and right out of phase from each other, and it makes a mid-side matrix. The wing does that automatically. You're going to have channel 1 be mono and channel 2 be stereo. And that way, when you do MS, it's going to automatically convert it into mid-side. If you go to your routing panel, you can actually see where it says mid-side, stereo, and you're able to control everything. And you're still able to even invert the polarity on one side over the other. But it's pretty simple, and it's really that easy. Now, the issue is when you want to process this as a mid-side signal, right? So we'll go to channel 17. Let's put channel 17 on the mains, and we'll put channel 18 on the mains, and we'll have this in mid-side mode. And we bring it up. It's in stereo, right? Even though we're using the mid-side matrix, if I bypass the mid-side matrix, we get that weird sound. So now that this is in stereo, we can process this. So we could do compression, we can do transient designing, we can do anything. But the problem that the wing has is that it can't do a mid EQ or a side EQ. It just does an EQ to the mid-side signal. So it's a overall stereo EQ. There is a workaround though, and that is actually by using an insert effect. So if we go to our inserts, we grab insert 9 and we insert the velvet imager. We turn off the stereoizer and we change it to MS width. We set it to -1. It's just the mid signal. You see it right here where it says mid. Now, if we go to channel 2, we make it have the same input. We do an insert. We can now make this one the secondary velvet imager, turn off stereoize, and make it only the side image. So now we have the mid and the side, and now we can EQ the mids separately. So now we'll go for the mids. We'll do a EQ on there. And then for the sides, maybe we want to get rid of all the low end. So now channel 1 is just processing the mids, and channel 2 is processing the sides. I hope that kind of answered your question on mid-side processing. It's showing you guys how the left side is just doing the middle and the right side is doing the sides. The Behringer wing can do mid-side processing. It is native to the wing. You just go to your inputs. You change from mono to stereo or mid-side. And then as long as you have a middle in the left and then the sides on the right, it makes it into a stereo channel. But if you want to do stereo processing or mid-side processing, like specifically EQing and compressing the mid and side, you will have to use the Velvet Imager to do the mid and the side processing, like separating it. It's going to take 2 insert slots and 2 channels. but it does let you do mid-side EQing and processing. Personally, I don't really use it this way. I find it just not really being that cool. At times it's kind of a little bit of a waste of time to do it this way. But another option that you have is if you do want to do just basic mid-side processing, you can use this to create your mid-side matrix, right? Now you have it in stereo, and you simply just process this as a normal channel. Right? This is now our normal overhead, even though it's in mid-side, it's now in stereo. And we can do whatever we want. If we want to have more mono, we just do the panning. Or we use the width to enhance, which is basically going to bring the side signal up more. Now there is a balance knob on the input, which is supposed to give you a balance between the left and the right. I did notice earlier that it doesn't actually balance between mid and side. It actually just balances the left and the right, which I find kind of annoying. I think I'm going to bring that up as a request for Behringer to have an ability to actually change the balance where when you're in mid-side, it'll bring up the mids or bring up the sides. Because if you listen to this, it just changes the left and right. It's a little disappointing. I wish it had like the option to do what I want it to do, but to be completely honest, it does not really matter because you do have the panning and you can also make a mid-side matrix on your own. What's up, Bart? How's it going? What's up, man? Oh, cool. Oh, cheers, man. You're probably heading out. That's cool. What's up, Bart? It's not never mind. You're right, but you're right. How's it going, Bart? Did you have anything you wanted to go over? We're actually, I think we finished like actually mixing this thing forever ago, like an hour ago, I think. At this point, we're just answering questions. Oh, that video. Yeah. We are actually working on that. That video is probably going to be out, at least one of them. It's going to be a multi-part series. That's going to be out sometime later next week. It's Sunday. It's probably going to be out around Friday. It's going to take some time to do the production for it. But yeah, that's definitely going to be coming out. It's just a lot of stuff to do. That's kind of what this stream was. You don't have anything to do. Yeah, dude, stay in chat. That's totally fine. Yeah. So the whole thing with testing the Behringer wings effects and stuff, that's still going to happen. It's just was kind of a little bit of a hassle trying to make it work, but we are doing that. It's going to be a series. I might do the stream. I think a stream might be a cool thing to do with it. But from what I've noticed on all my measurements and stuff, there's just so much to do. Like I brought it up on a couple of groups and I got a lot of like flack because they're like, why are you using Plugin Doctor? Why are you using that like analyzing thing? Why don't you use Room EQ Wizard? Why don't you use this? Like you should be using Smart. And it's like, I have all that. And I have tested it on a lot of that things. And I was just trying to make it simple and easy. So I think what we're going to do is I'm going to be just mixing using plugins and using the equivalent, because I have found like whatever they have modeled the Wing plugins off of, I've kind of found the match. Yeah, a little spoiler. Oh, yeah, keep the questions coming, bro. Yeah, so there is a spoiler. The Wing effects are quite clearly modeled after plugins from what I've been able to tell on my measurements, on Room EQ Wizard, on Smart, on Open Sound Meter. They kind of are matching what a lot of the plugins are doing. They're not a one-to-one match, but you have to keep in mind measuring it is also not a one-to-one match, because I've done stuff where I've tried to clone like what's it called, impulse responses, and I've noticed that even when you do really meticulous cloning of the impulse response, it still doesn't sound the same, because there is going to be some deviances, some changes, because a piece of hardware going through a converter then coming back in is going to detect the signal slightly different and at a different resolution. So what it looks like is Behringer basically got a bunch of really good plugins and like cloned them. Like they probably did like analyzers and effects and done all these like sine waves and stuff and like cloned them. And it's what it's looking like. Like the Neve compressors are acting like Neve compressors. The EQs are acting like EQs, and the SSL EQ is definitely a J series EQ. The SSL channel EQ, this is an SSL J series EQ, like straight up. This does not match the E series or the G series. This matches the EQ curves of the J series. This really closely matches the Roltec, Pultec emulation. This one matches straight up. It matches the Focusrite EQ from Plugin Alliance. This matches the Plugin Alliance one. This one I have not tested yet, but I have noticed that almost all of these have the semblance of harmonics, but the only one that truly has harmonics is the Pultec EQ. But yeah, that's it for the, I guess, the little spoiler. We're gonna be doing a whole mixing series. We're gonna basically be sending everything through plugins and through the Wing, because like they're on inserts, and there's some things that are only going to be available as amp sims and stuff like that. So I'm also going to be testing those out. We're going to be testing out stuff like the Sans amp. We're going to test that out compared to the free Sans amp and then the paid Sans amp plugins. The vocal doubler is going to be tested out versus the isotope one. And we're going to do like real-time contrasts and comparing and contrasting between plugins and the actual plugins in the Wing. It's going to be cool. Yeah. So that's a really good one. Do the compressors add harmonics? So yes, some of the compressors, just by being on, seem to add harmonic content. I've noticed something like the Fairchild has a little bit of harmonic content. The Distressor definitely has harmonic content, like just adding on. The Neve one adds harmonic content. The emulations, like the 1176, the ones that are known for being very colored, I noticed that they've modeled some sort of distortion. The Soul Warmth is straight up the SSL X saturator. Like this is straight up cloning that. And so yeah, like the compressors, the DBX has a little bit of like a waves kind of style DBX, like a saturation curve to it. So they do have a curve that matches like everything. Like the saturation, if it doesn't have saturation, when you start generating harmonics, you can see the profile of like, oh, those are the same areas where harmonics are generated on these specific plugins. And it's like specific plugins have it. You'll see like a little bit of like a hump where it's starting to pop up where harmonics should be normally. You'll see them literally on those plugins. It's really cool. They definitely do add some harmonics and characteristics, and they do a little bit of EQing. I wouldn't say it's an EQ per se, but it's like the way that it colors the sound is very similar. This thing is a lot like a 33609. All of them actually are really good native. I would say native variances, equivalents are very good. Oh, you're the one who found the bug. That's dope, dude. Yeah, yeah. You were the one. You're like famous for finding that bug. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The distressor has a lot of harmonics, and yeah, you did find the bug. There's like a certain setting where it was all just distortion or something. It's crazy, dude. They've actually. I'm actually really impressed with the way Behringer's been handling their updates on this. It was a little slow for the last one. I will admit. I find the last update was a little slow, but they fixed a lot of the problems on this thing. That's hilarious, dude. I will say this though, the way that the Behringer is handling the transient designer is very interesting because it works like a gate, not as much as like a transient designer normally works. And I think it's on the detection circuit because it might be because it's oversampling or something, but you'll hear it on the examples. Like we're going to be diving into it and you'll hear how it kind of does this like breathing thing. I think it's on like the way that they modeled like how the plugin responds to transients, but they didn't model the detector section of the transient designer, which is crazy because I love this transient designer. I really love it. I think it sounds really good. It might sound better than the plugin version. Cool, just got my rent being paid confirmed. That's good. They took my money out of my account. It's always nice. Like, oh, here, take a couple grand from me. Cool. Anyone have any other questions? Let me know. You know, one thing I do kind of wish, and I'm going to say this one more time. I want to have the API EQ right here. I want to have an API graphic EQ right here because having it on the buses is cool, but I want to have it here. And I'm noticing there's lots more slots. I'm wondering if Behringer is actually planning on adding like different digital EQs and different analog EQs. Oh, yeah. I have actually. So I have an interesting story about that. Actually, if you go on, I think it's Guillaume Loretti, one of his live streams, he was talking about digicodes. He was talking about digicodes on one stream, and I mentioned how I did this event. Let me see if I can find it. I might have like a short video of it somewhere. Oh, this one. Let me bring it up for you guys to see on this one. So this is an event where I was mixing on an SD12, right? And one thing that I wasn't allowed to show was under the console, there was my Behringer wing because the Digico does not have a really good, like, I don't really like the Digico's effects. I think the Digico, the best thing they have is that every EQ is a dynamic EQ, and it's amazing. You have multi-band dynamic EQs, but honestly, the Digico, it sounds fantastic, but it does not really have a lot of stuff. Like the bells and whistles are all just stock stuff. And I found that to be a little bit disappointing, to be honest. So yeah, I would say I've used a Digico SD12. I've used a Digico Quantum. I've used DM7s. I've used QL5s, CL5s. I've never used an Avid console. I really want to use an Avid console, but I've never had that opportunity. But I will say the Behringer Wing is really good because of all of its stock plugins. Oh, I've used D-Lives. I actually am a big fan of the D-Live. I hate the SQ5 and SQ7 or whatever. I hate the SQs. I hate the QUs. I'm not a huge fan of the Advantis, even though I think it sounds really good. To be honest, I feel like the Behringer Wing, for what you pay, let's be honest, for what you pay, is an amazing console. Because let's say we go for let's do the SQ5, right? A and H. Let's look at the Allen Heath SQ5, right? And let's look at the Wing Compact. So the Allen Heath SQ5 is right here. Wing Compact is here. You have more faders on than Allen Heath, for sure, right? But the Allen Heath SQ5 has a really janky touchscreen. It's got a small one. It's a little old. It has a lot of outputs, and that's one thing that I think is really good on it. Oh, yeah. I'm probably going to do a stream tomorrow. I'm streaming today because the kids are not home. But when they get back, I'm going to spend the rest of the day with the kids. But I'm going to definitely stream tomorrow. Tomorrow night, I'll definitely be on. Probably around like 10:30 my time. I'm in California. So 10:30, I would say 10:30 to 10:45 California time. I will definitely be streaming tomorrow. And yeah, I think I have some ambient tracks. Let's do that. Let's go over some ambient tracks and let's do that. That'd be cool. But as far as consoles, I think a deal breaker for me is a big one is the options of flexibility. I'm not a huge fan of the SQ series. It has a lot of native outputs, but you don't have a lot of options here. Like, you know, the S-Link is cool. You have one effects, like one insert slot, but I don't like that. It says it's a how many channel console, but you can't actually do stereo linking. You have to pay for the effects, the good sounding effects. And I don't like the way that everything sounds versus the Wing, where you have an amazing touchscreen. Everything sounds really good. You have all these plugins that sound really good. And some of them are emulations of like TC Electronic stuff, and it's actually made by them. And you don't have to pay for the effects. I really don't like how Allen and Heath makes you pay for plugins. Like, hey, I want a good sounding graphic EQ and a de-esser. That's $700. That's a ripoff to me, to be honest. Ooh, how chaining multiple reverbs. Yeah, we should test it out. As far as deal breakers for me for consoles, I need to be able to have like flexibility. If your console doesn't have flexibility, I will not use it. I hate like touch mixes and like Mackie mixers, because for the price you could buy something else. And I'm not even a really big fan of the X32, even though I have one like literally right here. I feel like they're just a little old and archaic. I like the modularness of the Wing, and it reminds me of Yamaha consoles. What is it? The Yamaha. What is it? It is the CL or the DM7. Yeah. But yeah, if we go for like camera 3, I'm actually a pretty big fan of the DM7. I find it to be kind of a slow console, if I am going to be honest. The way that it operates is really slow. The menus are slow. But I mean, if you look at the DM7, you have 2 screens that are completely separate. So you can do completely separate mixes. But I've actually noticed for me that the input section right here is very much reminiscent of the Wing, right? So like this is their control software. If we go to the Wing, it's kind of similar, right? It looks really, really similar. Dante 1, Dante 2, whatever. It's the only thing is that the DM7 can do this sequential patch where you can either clear them all or you could do sequential patch. And you'll see that every channel becomes automatically aligned to whatever input. I think the Behringer needs to do that for our input section. We need to have a sequential patch or we can just patch inputs. But you'll notice that the input slots and everything on the DM7 is very similar to the Wing. Very similar to the Wing. The DM7 is amazing, but I have to say I hate the DM7 Compact. It's a horrible workflow for the console. Yeah, the SQ5 is definitely a late answer from Alan Heath. It's not all that great. It's a little bit old school. The Avantis is a very good console too, but again, you have those like weird limitations of like, hey, I don't really like the way that Alan Heath's like reverbs and delays and compressors sound. It's actually the same thing with the Digicos. Nobody uses Digicos for their effects. Like nobody uses Digicos for their reverbs. Nobody uses Digicos for their delays. Nobody uses Digicos for like their transient shaping. Everyone uses Waves. Everybody uses Waves plugins. And that's the thing with the Digico is like, if you have a Digico, you better have a SoundGrid server because people are going to be expecting that sound quality and that sound profile. Whereas if you have like a Wing, you have all that built in, right? And I would say that even for a DM7, the DM7 is not just a basic thing. You have like aggressive EQ, smooth EQ, you have legacy EQ. You also have stuff like, hey, how do I want to have this globally? And you might not have like analog emulations here, but if you go to the dynamics section, you have a de-esser, you have an expander, you have a ducking, you have a compressor. That is a DBX compressor right there, right? You have the legacy comp. And then if you go to your second dynamics, you have a FET limiter, you have a 33609, right? Those are all really good emulations to have, like really, really good emulations to have. And they sound fantastic. I also really like that the DM7 has two main outs, two stereo outputs, stereo A and B. And you're able to do like what I do with my Wing, where when I'm mixing, I have my main mix for my mains and for my subs, and then I send that to my matrices. The DM3 is a nightmare. Yes. Oh my gosh, dude. I hate the DM3. I hate that thing. That thing is, oh, if there's a bunch of noise that my wife is doing the laundry now, so there's going to be lots of noise now. Sorry about that. But yeah, dude, the DM3 is a horrendous console. It is a genuinely bad console. It's good if you're doing like a singer-songwriter, one guy doing one or two mic inputs, but it's not very good for anything besides corporate or speeches or just using a handheld. As far as a SoundGrid server goes for the Wing, that's actually a really good idea. You should check out, I don't know if you're a part of the DIY SoundGrid server user groups on Facebook, but one of my friends is it's a guy. He's a guy. I like to make fun of him, but I hope he's not watching this because then he'll know I kind of respect him. But his name is Michael, right? There's like 5 Michaels that I know, so they'll know. None of them will know, but the one guy. But he's done a DIY SoundGrid server where he has a Nook or like a little mini PC that is his SoundGrid server, and then he connects it to another computer to control it. It's very, very good. And if you look up on the forums and on the Reddit channels and everything like that, the groups, they can talk to you about what computers are good because Waves doesn't actually have a high requirement for SoundGrid. If you look at their specs on their like $3,000 machines, Dude, you can Nook has those same specs. So yeah, all you'd really need is 2 computers, you know, a MacBook and like a mini PC, and you could run a SoundGrid server, or in my case, 2 computers, 2 laptops, and you can do a SoundGrid server. One thing that I would do though is do a dual boot. Have 2 hard drives on your like DIY SoundGrid server, and have one be like an OS, like a Windows OS or something, Windows 11 OS. I think it's still free, and then one be the SoundGrid server. So that way, if you ever need to use like, oh, I don't need SoundGrid, I just need to record channels, you can just boot that up, load Reaper in there, whatever DAW you use, and do that. Or if it's like, oh, today I need my SoundGrid plugins, which is what I do on my Nook that's controlling the Wing right now, this one. I have a dual boot that is a SoundGrid server. But I would recommend it, dude. I would recommend it. I know that the Wing doesn't sell a card slot. I know you need to get the YPIO or whatever, right? Wing SoundGrid. I know you need to buy this, but $200 is actually dirt cheap. Because if you get Wing Dante, if you get this, I know now you with the new update for 3.1, you can actually put the Dante card internally, and then you can have your SoundGrid externally, and that might be a really good way of doing it, because SoundGrid tends to be a little bit more finicky. I like, because you have to have multiple computers connected, I like to have the redundancy on SoundGrid. So this is also something to do. It will cost you like $700, $800 at the end, because it's like 600 plus the 200, so $600, $700, but it is a thing to keep in mind. But the YPIO cards are not expensive. I don't know why a SoundGrid card is only like $200 when hold on. Alan and Heath SoundGrid. Let's see how much this is. Is $1,400. It's for the D Live. It's almost $3,000 after taxes. That's $3,000. For this is for the. This is used, I believe. Yeah, I think this is used. This is for the SQ. $800. This is also for the SQ. I think they. Oh yeah, this is 32 by 32, and I think this is 64, and this is 1,500. Whereas, like, look at that, dude. Like, this is kind of ridiculous. Like the prices here, I don't like that. Oh wow, there's lots of comments. Hold on, let me read the comments real quick. Okay, so we have. Looks like you can insert the Waves Dante inside. And yeah, that's actually what I was saying is I own a Dante internally, and I have my Dante card slot, the original slot that it came with, and that's where I have my SoundGrid card. So I just pop it in there, and I just pop it into the back of the Wing, and I use SoundGrid that way. That way I have Dante to do multi-track recording onto any computer, and then I have SoundGrid to have SoundGrid processing. Yeah, Bart, they do work. They do work now. As of firmware 3.1, Behringer has made it so that the Dante expansion cards work with SoundGrid. You can just change them, just pop them in. That's it. That's all you have to do. Just pop it in and it works. So the way you do it on the external module, I have no clue where my module is right now. But let's grab it here. So with the external module, when you get the Dante one, It's, wow, that's a horrible picture. Come on. Come on, Sweetwater. Wing Dante card. Maybe Alto Music has a better picture? No, no one has a good picture of this thing. Here we go. So right here is where you put the Dante card, right? And it's just a different color. It actually fits the it actually fits the same slot. So if we go here and here, it's the same thing. You can actually even see that it has a notch in the same area and it fits. So all you have to do is, you see the little notches right there, is you just take this out by taking off these little sidebars and you put the SoundGrid card in there, and then you do the firmware update or whatever, and it works perfectly. It's officially supported by Behringer now. So that's a really cool thing. But back to that question about what makes or breaks what I want in a console. Nowadays, I need to have multiple main outs. I need to have stereo buses, and I need to be able to have routing and patching anywhere I want. How do you sell it? You can honestly put it up on the market. I would say put it up on the user group. See if anyone wants to buy it. Personally, I have actually sold it to friends because when I bought I originally bought an internal and then I bought an external module to do the waves thing. I just sold it to my friend. Sold it for like, because it was like just brand new when I got it. And I just sold it for like, I think I sold it for like $300. Just so that someone would buy it. But I would just put it on the marketplace, put it on Facebook Marketplace, say you'll ship it and just charge shipping for it. Or if you want to wait a month, I'll probably buy it next month because I'm probably going to buy another wing. So, but yeah, I would say go on the Facebook group, go on the Facebook group, go on Facebook Marketplace and put it up online. I would recommend Reverb as well, but Reverb has been really weird with me. I have had really high like sales taxes on me. Every time I sell something, they tax like a lot. And I've had 3 packages that I shipped through Reverb get completely destroyed, like annihilated in shipping. And I was using like what they recommended, using their people. Literally 3 packages, 2 Apollo X8Ps and 1 1073. Like straight up destroyed in shipment. Oh, you're not on Facebook. It's all right. Only old people are on Facebook. So we're on Facebook. But if you're in Poland, honestly, you can still do it on the marketplace. I would say Reverb, if that's your best bet. You could sell it on Reverb, and that way, if you do shipping, even though they're going to tax you a lot, it'll automatically translate to being like, hey, if you want to buy it, I'll sell it to you for like $350, and you'll have to pay the rest shipping. It'll cost them like $400. Internal effects? What do you mean, Bart, by internal effects via USB Dante? Okay, so I'm not sure what you mean there, but when it comes to what I mean by internal was the expansion card slot. So my wing internally, you know how the Behringer wing has an internal Dante card, just how you have an internal Dante card? I have an internal Dante card. And then I bought a Dante card slot for the expansion so that I could put the sound grid in there. That's what I mean. No, actually, you can get really low latency on via Dante if you have what's it called, the PCIe card. I have a PCI slot in my NUC, and that NUC is using the PCIe card for the Focusrite Dante card, and I get 3 milliseconds of latency. It's really, really, really short. I think total round trip, it's like 5.5 milliseconds of latency. Very, very short. And internal effects. I would not. It's not a huge amount of latency, but I have noticed you get like 3 milliseconds more latency going through internal effects. I think it's up to like 4 milliseconds more. It's because it has to go into the internal effects slot, which the effects racks have latency built in. It's not a lot. It's not a high amount of latency. What's that? Channel 33. It's not a super high amount of latency that's on them, but it does add a little bit of latency. So just putting this channel into an effects slot that's blank and turning it on will add like a couple of samples of latency. And then when you do an external effects, that's going to add more latency because then it's going to create a buffer for that. And then it's going to need to go out of the converters into the converters or whatever. And in the return, we'll have a small buffer. So like if I do Dante, if I do like this, it's going to have a slight latency like this, right? So if we do that, go into the Dante network, it's going to have a little bit of latency. So you're gonna get a I don't know how much latency. You're gonna get at least like 5 to 7 milliseconds of latency. But with SoundGrid, yeah, if you use a card like the Dante card, not a Dante card, but if you use like the SoundGrid card for the proper network, just network to network, you're able to get, I think, around 3 milliseconds of round trip latency, 3 to 4. And that is more acceptable. Another thing you can do, which what I would kind of recommend, is you could just use it on an aux insert or a channel, right? You can do like an aux, and you'd have to do some like crazy routing, some like really weird routing. But for SoundGrid, I would not go for USB at all. The latency will be way too high, way too high. With Dante, you could get away with it if you use a Dante PCIe card. But as far as latency for your effects like delays and reverbs, you can't. There's no way you can bypass that. You're gonna get it no matter what, because you have to have that buffer. But keep in mind that the latency coming from a SoundGrid card, like a properly set up server, even a homemade server, is very low. Like it's very low. Like you said, it's about a millisecond. After everything conversion, it's about like 2 to 3 milliseconds. If you have it as an insert slot for your effects, for like a delay or reverb, you're getting about 5 milliseconds, 5 to 7. That's within the boundary of a pre-delay. You're not going to have to worry about it. Hey, Jeremy. Oh, Jeremy, dude, I love your video. I just watched your video yesterday on the Phoenix Pro thing. Great video. Great video. I'm working on one too for my Phoenix Pro combiner. So I think with Jeremy, what you're thinking about is using native, like going from a PC to the computer. And for that, you would need to have, if you do a Dante, you would need to have the PCIe card. The PCIe card for the Dante would allow you to bypass the buffer of Dante because let me bring up Dante controller or Dante virtual sound card. If you look at Dante virtual sound card, let's bring up Dante virtual sound card over here. Dante virtual sound card has latency options, right? So I have mine set at a buffer of 126, 24-bit sample with an audio latency of 1 millisecond. So you have a minimum 1 millisecond latency. But then you also have your Dante latency, which is going to be at 4, 6, or 10 milliseconds. So if you have it at 4, you're going to have a really powerful computer that can handle that. And that's going to be 4 milliseconds plus 1 millisecond, and then the 1 millisecond that it takes for the card on your console, right? Dante has a minimum 1 millisecond latency on every single console. On Yamahas, on everything, it's a minimum 1 millisecond latency. So it's 1 millisecond from, let's say, a Rio stage box, which is a Yamaha Dante stage box, 1 millisecond there, to the Yamaha, 1 millisecond there, 2 milliseconds of latency minimum. That's just Dante. That's how it works, right? So with that, on a PC using USB, you're going to get a higher latency. If you use the Ethernet cable, you can have a lower latency, but you have the 4 millisecond plus the 1 millisecond. So you have a total of you have 6 milliseconds of latency going from the computer to the wing, right? Or the computer to the Yamaha, the computer to the Digico, 6 milliseconds of latency. Yes, and yes, you can use a non-shielded cable with Dante. I think with SoundGrid as well, you can, but it's not recommended. You should use a shielded cable, but SoundGrid and Dante don't need to have like a super crazy Ethernet cable like the Behringer Wing or the X32 or other consoles. Yeah. You only need to choose a server. The host PC only works as a platform to choose. Yeah. Let me see if I have SoundGrid installed on this computer right now. Oh no, this is not the SoundGrid hard drive, so this one should have SuperRack Performer. I don't have SuperRack Performer on this one. Well, normally with SuperRack Performer, which is the native USB version, you just open up the app on the PC and then you control whatever you want. That's why I would say if you're using Dante for SoundGrid, that's the way you're going to do it. You're going to have SuperRack Performer, use the PCIe card for Dante, and I think that's going to give you a total of 4 milliseconds of latency total, right? So you're going to have 1 millisecond to the console and then 3 milliseconds to the computer. And that way you have 4 total. And then with the insert slot, you're going to get like 5 milliseconds of latency. And that's going to give you within the range of like, you're under 6 milliseconds, you're less than 10. That's within boundary of pre-delay. That's if you want to use it natively. If you're using SoundGrid as an actual SoundGrid server platform, you need to have a computer that's made into a SoundGrid server. That's going to have like a millisecond of latency via the Ethernet. And then another computer that is just controlling SoundGrid, which is like, which is Wave SoundGrid native. And that's actually really expensive. It's like $600. Let me take a look. I think it is. Let me open up WingEdit again. And I think it is, let me see. It's Wave SoundGrid. Wave SoundGrid is, how much is it? So Wave SoundGrid, which is just the software, is $600. So what this is this is a mouse. This is on your host PC. And this will basically control your Waves plugins. It will not do any processing whatsoever. You connect that computer to a server, in the case of a homemade server, you just connect it to the homemade server, you link it up, and the homemade server will do all of the DSP, while the control computer, Mac, PC, Linux, whatever, will just handle the DSP, or sorry, so the server handles the DSP, the computer handles the control, and you get about like two to three, you get about 3 milliseconds of latency that way. In realistic terms, it's about 4 to 5, but that's still really good. If you use a Dante card, let's see, a Dante PCIe. If you use a Dante PCIe card, which is pretty expensive, this gives you super low latency that can rival that. It's pretty similar, and you'd be able to use it on your computer. You get really, really low latency. It's ridiculously low latency. It's like I said, I get about 3 with no buffer issues or anything, and this handles all of that for you. And this gives you 126 channels. I use it at 126 channels just because the higher channel count you get, the more it taxes the system and the card. And this is Mac and Windows compatible. This is an expensive way to go, but this is going to give you like hundreds of channels anywhere you go. But yeah, this is one way of doing it. And you get very, very low latency. The other way, the other option would be getting a SoundGrid server, which is going to cost about the same. Or you could just not use plugins. That is also another option. Yeah. For psychoacoustic effects, delays, reverbs, that's totally usable and totally fine. You're totally right. I would not use those latencies for processing, like dynamics and EQs and stuff like that. At least for 10 and 20 milliseconds. For 5 milliseconds, that's actually pretty normal. Most digital consoles, like I'm saying, Yamaha's, Digico's. Actually, that's one thing that I actually have always found annoying, that consoles will brag about their low latency, but when you actually look at it and you look at the paperwork and you read through it, the console will take like under a millisecond to process the audio through the chain, but it takes a millisecond for it to get audio to the stage box and from the stage box. It adds up, right? The Yamaha actually operates at about 3 milliseconds of latency. The Wing, if you're using a stage box, is about almost 3 milliseconds of latency. The Digico is about 3 milliseconds of latency. The Allen & Heath is about 3 milliseconds of latency. They're all very close, like within like a millisecond of each other. And adding SoundGrid adds that at about 3 milliseconds. You're getting about 5 to 6 milliseconds of latency, and that is pretty acceptable. That's why you usually don't use SoundGrid plugins when you're mixing IEMs, because that's the only time the artist is going to notice it, is for mixing IEMs. I mean, oh yeah. Actually, I have so many Nabrini plugins. I have almost all of them. I actually use Nexus whenever I'm tracking something. I'll use that to do like real-time processing. But yeah, I love Nabrini audio plugins. I think they sound amazing. They sound really, really good. I own almost all of them. I actually do some reviews on them for the channel sometimes, but I've been given like 10, 12 of their plugins by them for free, and I've bought the rest when they're on sale. They're a very good brand. I like them. So when I mix live, do I prefer to use SoundGrid? Lately, no. When I first got the Wing, yes, I used my SoundGrid server. But the more and more that I've been doing this, the more and more that I've noticed I don't have a problem with these plugins. Like actually, Bart and I were talking about earlier, I'm actually going to be working on a video series, probably a live stream now because of Bart. I think Bart's convinced me we're going to do a live stream on it. That the Behringer wings effects, I've been doing testing and analyzing on them. They have totally been getting plugins and like plugins and like cloning them and putting them into the wing. So I actually have no problem using the wing effects. I think they sound fantastic. The only thing that I think could be done a lot better is their auto tune, because their auto tune is based off of the TC Electronics, or I think the TC Helicon auto tune plugin. And that's the only one that I think is kind of a little bit of a nuisance where it doesn't sound that good, is this one. But I've used this a bunch of times, like a ton of times, and it sounds fine. It's just, it doesn't give you true keys or anything like that. You can't tell it like, hey, only auto-tune these notes or turn those notes off. You can't do it like in real auto-tune. It's going to just like ignore these notes when they're out of key and just tune the ones that are highlighted. So if you want to do like a certain scale, right, like a major scale, you can make it not tune anything that's sharp or flat, but it will let those notes still be played. Whereas real auto tune or Waves Tune Live lets you actually bypass those notes. Yeah. Yeah, Bart, it's a great idea. I like that idea. But yeah, I use the wing stock effects all the time now. I actually stopped booting my Nook into SoundGrid mode now. I almost never use it anymore because I have all these channels built in and there's zero latency. And that is one thing that you have to keep in mind when you are doing SoundGrid, is you have to decide how many channels am I going to be using on SoundGrid. And that's because SoundGrid, do I have SoundGrid installed? I don't know if I have it installed. But if we just take a look, let's go and see if we can find a Super Rack Performer here. Let's go Waves, Super Rack. Let's bring Super Rack Performer up and let's put it into this window for us. And it should be camera 3. Cool. So if we go to Super Rack Performer, this is just to show you how SoundGrid really looks like. You know, you have all these little insert slots and stuff like that. But one thing with SoundGrid is you have to make sure that, and Super Rack Performer, is you have to make sure that you decide how many channels are going to be fed to the server or to the Super Rack, because delay compensation. This does delay compensation by grouping and by channels and by whatever. I prefer to do by grouping and channels. But let's say you send, let's say I only send the kick and the snare to the SoundGrid or to the Super Rack Performer. They're going to be latency compensated inside of Super Rack. And so whatever normal latency you get, like let's say just an SSL EQ and a transient shaper, and it's giving me no extra latency, so it's only 3 milliseconds of latency coming back into the console. But then for the snare, I added a plugin that adds latency. It's going to compensate by adding more latency to the whole signal and return later. So now my delay compensation that I'm doing here is going to be wrong. And I'm going to have stuff that's out of phase and out of time. So when I am using SoundGrid or Super Rack Performer, I decide right away, okay, I'm going to be sending all of the drums to SoundGrid, or all of this to Super Rack, right? And what I don't need to send, I'm not going to send, because that's going to need to be time aligned. And it's going to be all dependent on SoundGrid's delay compensation. And so that is one thing that happens a lot with Waves LV1 systems. I was using one pretty recently, and I was, first of all, blown away. Waves LV1 is very, very good. It sounds pretty decent, like the preamps and everything are fine, but having plugins on every single channel, especially when you use their zero latency plugins, is amazing. Such low latency. Everything sounds really good, but it happens when you start using like the C6, right? Like when I start using C6 or anything like that, when I go into using anything that has any type of delay or latency, let's say I use this, which has zero latency, that's totally fine, right? But then when I want to do like a Maserati guitar, this has latency. And then let's say I want to also add the pipe compressor doesn't have any latency. Let's say I want to add an L1, which still has minimum latency. It's like 9 samples. And then I want to use an H reverb, which also adds latency. And then I want to add the curve EQ, right? Even the live, which has a little bit of latency. This all will add a latency to my signal, and eventually I can have more than 5 milliseconds. I can have up to like 7, up to 15 milliseconds of latency on the whole session, like just going back into the console. So that's something you have to be very careful with when you are doing sound grid, is the latency compensation that comes back and forth. And I've noticed that when I was using a LV1 system, I wasn't paying attention. I was using like R bass on the kick and like R bass on the bass. And then I was using a multi-band compressor on the vocal, and I was using a multi-band compressor here. And then eventually I started noticing that I was hearing a time delay. And I was like, oh shoot, like this is noticeable. Like I can hear it from front of house. Monitor World did not hear it. They were on a different system. They had their own LV1 system. And because of that, that guy was only using like channel strip effects and stuff that had almost no latency. But the second I started doing anything that had latency, I was hearing it. And that's a big thing that happens. For front of house, it's okay. I would say under 10 milliseconds is okay because people won't really see it. But for Monitor World, I would not use this at all. So if you are going to use a SoundGrid server or plugins, the fastest way to do it is on your inserts. So you would go, let's say channels 15 or let's say 14. 14 is going to go from Dante input directly, and you'll get almost no latency, right? But because of this, if you're sending this to someone's IEMs, they will hear that slight latency. And that's the only bad thing that can happen. So it's always good if you're going to use this to have the least amount of latency. You want to have it as a channel insert, not an insert, like as an actual input. You want to have this as an input. I think my cat's like jumping on the green screen. And then you're going to have to have a second console that's going to mix with no extra plugins. It's just going to be natively going to their IEMs and stuff like that. That way you're going to have the almost zero latency. You're going to have a very manageable time. The other option is if you only have like 20 channels that you're using, use the second bank of faders. And this way you can have all of your inputs doubled on here, and you can just give them their IEM mix or whatever. And then you can have your front of house mix here. And you just make sure that none of these are going to go to the mains at all. You just take them out and you just copy this over to like every one of these channels. And that way this is only going to be for their IEM mix. This is going to be for your main mix. And that's the other option that you have. But yeah, as far as what I prefer now, I actually just use the native stuff. It adds almost no latency and it sounds really good. And the plugins are very clearly copied from actual plugins. Yeah. You also have to worry about SoundGrid crashing. I've had that happen before. The servers sometimes crash, and that's one big thing with Waves, the LV1 systems. They're very nice, but whenever an update comes out, you have to wait because oftentimes the update will break something, and then like when the new real-time denoiser came out, right? It was really cool. People liked it, but they installed it. They updated their LV1 systems, and they were getting crashes. They were getting all this crazy stuff happening left and right, and it's because it was buggy and it didn't work properly with their sound grid. So sound grid stopped working. Yes, and there is no real redundancy on an LV1 system. Correct. That is the biggest problem with that. It's kind of similar with like Avid consoles, how especially the older ones, they were all reliant on a very, very old version of Pro Tools, and it crashed quite often. I've done a couple of events where I was just helping and assisting, and they had a Avid system, like an older one, and it crashed. Straight just crashed. Boom. Avid crashed. Pro Tools crashed. and that was a big issue. Yeah. Yeah, thanks for watching. Yeah. I think today we're just focusing on the mix bus, and then it ends up being we didn't do much because the mix was pretty much done. But anyway, thank you guys so much, Jeremy. I really look forward to more videos from you. I really liked your review. I really liked it. You did a great job. But yeah. Oh, dude, we could do that. I think we'll do a stream like that. We'll do a waves mix versus a wing mix. We'll definitely do that. That'll be cool. We'll probably just do it natively where we'll use plugins because it's the same thing. All my waves plugins are the same thing as my server. That way it'll just be easier. We'll just flip between them. But thank you guys for watching. I do have to go now. I have to go get my kids. It's late in the day. But thanks, everybody. I will see you guys later. And have a good day. Thank you guys for watching once again. And yeah, leave comments down below when everything's done and tell me what you guys want to see next. Maybe next time I'll start a poll and we can just like make a designated what everyone wants to see. But yeah, thanks. I'll see you guys later. And we'll try to figure out what we want to do next. I'll probably do a community poll and you guys can vote on what we want. Oh no, I actually have to go. I have to go pick up my kids. So see you guys later, man. Have a good one.